Okay, so welcome back to the beginner's tutorial guide. So since the last video, I just played a bit offline. So a few things I had to do just to gain a bit of science and stuff. I didn't show this because it's simple enough tasks and it's quite not very interesting to watch, but it's tasks you can do on your own. So if you remember in my mission control, as you can see, there's quite a lot of missions where it comes to like testing solid fuel boosters and all that. So I did quite a few of them to get extra money and extra science. So yeah, you just go through them and make sure that you complete the task as it states, which I did. It gives you a bit of science each time, a bit of money, and reputation. So there's quite a few of them. I went through them bit by bit. So yeah, you can just do that in your own time as well. So yeah, as I said, that gave me more money, reputation, and more science points. The science points that I had, I was then able to buy a few extra things in research and development. I think I previously had advanced rocketry and aviation, but now I've also bought flight control, which gives me better winglets. Like, these are controllable winglets compared to the other ones that I couldn't turn with them directly. And yeah, that's a plain winglet, I think. You can use it on rocket as well. That's the one I tend to use. And a reaction wheel. Reaction wheels are, so your command pod that you usually use has a reaction wheel in it. Reaction wheel is used so that you can turn your craft in space. Because, of course, like once you're in space, fins aren't going to work anymore. So you need a way to move around, and that's what a reaction wheel is. Basically, it's just gyro wheels spinning, and that makes the ship then turn. And for bigger ships, the reaction wheel inside the pod itself isn't going to be strong enough, so you can get this additional one as well, and it'll just give it more force, so you'll be able to turn your ship easier. What I also got was basic science, so that just gave me a few extra bits and pieces. One thing that was important, I got the battery this time as well, because when you're in space, yeah, well, eventually you're going to run out of battery, and the pod itself has a bit of battery, but it's not much. A new science object that I can connect to the ship, called the Science Junior. That gives you quite a good bit of science. Storage unit, that will just allow you to put science pieces in rather than just carry it on your astronaut. You could put it in the storage unit. Radiator panel, small and large, that's to help dissipate heat into space. Like if you've got any objects that are going to overheat, you can use that. And the high gain antenna, so just a stronger antenna than we had before, and also the Probodobodyne Staputnik, which is a drone, which is pretty useful, so you can go up to space without using a pilot. This one's quite difficult because it doesn't have any SAS control, meaning if you get any spin, you have to manually control that rather than your pilot holding in a certain direction, so it can be quite tricky to use depending on what you're trying to do with it. So I kind of stay away from it. So Staputnik is actually a good name for it, just, yeah. So that's the things that I've added. So with the things that I have, I'm going to try and fly by the moon. I won't be able to land on the moon, definitely not. I hope I'll reach the moon, or reach the orbit of the moon, fly around it, and then come back home. Because there's a few other things I'd prefer to have before taking a moon mission on, but I might as well give it a go. One other thing that I changed as well, because I had to change, so the size of ship that I built has more than 30 pieces, which the vehicle assembly building doesn't allow in its first stage, so I had to right click on this and I had to upgrade it to facility level 2, which cost 250,000 I believe, so I was up to 400,000 almost, and yeah, so I bought that with it. And except for that, I don't think I made any other changes. No, I think that's about it. Alright, so let's go to our VAB. We've already built a ship that I think might get me to space. Hopefully. Sorry, not to space, to the moon and back. Alright, so it looks a bit crazy, and it's going to require a lot of fuel to get there and get back. Especially in the early stages, these kind of engines take you a bit up, but not that far. So I'm hoping this will be able to take me there and back. So this is the extra science piece that I received. It's that's a Science Junior. That'll give me a good bit of science. Now this can only be used once unless you've got a scientist on board. The scientist will be able to restore it, very similar to the mystery goo. So what I've made a slight change here. So if I zoom in slightly, I've added a loading bay, or what's it called in the game here? Service bay. So for extra payload. So if I open this, I can right click on this, and I can open the doors, and you'll see everything is now inside instead of being outside. So I've got my pressure, what's it called? Pressomat, I think it's called. And I've got the mystery goo, my temperature gauge, and there you can see 2 batteries as well, which I hope should be enough to get me there and bring me back. For example, if I'm using SAS, so you're pilot controlling your ship the whole time, that is burning energy. It's not much, but it still does. Sending anything via the antenna is going to use use battery. So a few things that I just have to be careful about. Later on in the game, the next science bit we can do is we'll get solar panels, so we don't really have to worry about losing that much energy, or we can always restore energy. Even if we burn it all, you just have to wait a bit and then you can restore your energy through those solar panels, if it's facing the sun, of course. Okay, so what I've done in this ship, as you might be able to see up here, so I have my parachute on top. Here I've added a reaction wheel. That's what I was talking about. So this will give me more torque when I'm turning. This one does have its own torque as well. You see it's got a reaction wheel inside. There's a few things in here actually that you can see in the inventory here as well. So on my pilot, on Jebediah, he's actually got a parachute on him and also a jetpack. We'll not be using them just yet, but just so you know that he's got that inventory on him. One thing I'm actually going to get rid of, because you can see here I've got my electric charge, so I've got 50 out of 50, so that's full. One thing I don't need, I mean it doesn't make much of a difference, I've not removed it so far, but I'm actually carrying extra fuel, monopropellant, which I actually don't need yet. I'm just going to remove it for this mission, make the ship a little bit lighter. I've not done it in previous missions, but to be honest, it's very little weight that is, but every bit of weight you're carrying is essentially extra fuel you're going to need to get up to space. So I have underneath here, underneath the main part of the ship, the science parts of the ship, I have one engine with one fuel tank with an engine with the swivel engine. So these 2 fuel tanks followed by the swivel engine, and decoupling. So let me just show you there, so you can see that's the final stage of my rocket as such. Put it back on. So this is where it gets a bit crazier. So that's the middle section with a, what have I got on there? The T30 liquid fuel engine. Actually I want to change that to T45 as well, just because I want to be able to use that so I can turn my ship easier. Because the fins alone, especially at a higher height, are not going to do anything, and the reaction wheel with a ship this size isn't going to do much. So if I have the reliant on the bottom there, I'll be able to. That swivels around, so that'll allow me to turn the ship easier at a higher altitude. So what I've done as well, I've added booster rockets, multiple as you can see. There's 4 of the same ones around here. But they're set in such a way that these 2 will go off first. No, sorry, these 2 will go off first, so the side ones will go off first. And then I'll launch these next ones. Because I tried it previously with launching them all at the same time, I just gained way too much speed too quickly, so I'm at 350 meters per second already at around 400,000 meters or something like that. So that's no good, it's just a waste of energy. Then I've actually tried it using just this, and then switching around, and it just wasn't powerful enough. So the first 2 weren't getting me high enough off the ground, so I've added these on the side as well, hoping it'll give me an extra boost will allow me to get to orbit in a fuel-saving manner, and then it will be enough for me to get to the moon and back. I just have to make sure I've got my staging right. So I want these all to go off at the same time. So the side ones plus these ones. Then pop these ones off, yeah. And pop these ones off. Followed by start these engines as well, and the main engine. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to launch, and it's going to be this one and this one. So these 4 rockets are going to go off first. Once I eject these, the side boosters are going to go off, including the main engine. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Actually, I might separate that just in case. I don't necessarily need that engine to go off at the same time. Then followed by decoupling of these 2 engines, and eventually the decoupling of this engine, exactly. Then I'll be using this last part, which will then, I can then activate that engine next, decouple that part. Now on the side here I have drogue chutes, which will allow, because I've got a heavier vehicle now, because I'll be taking back this whole part, so from here onwards this whole thing will be coming back, so it's going to be heavier, and I don't 100% know if I'll be able to slow down enough with this parachute, so I'm just going to use the drogue chutes on the side to slow it down enough, and then pop this one as well. So that's what my drogue chutes are. My drogue chutes can be used at higher speeds than the normal chute, therefore that's why I've got them on, so I can slow down my ship and then eventually use the last parachute. Hopefully it'll work. And I think that's that. So my crew, yeah, I'll send Jebediah. Actually, yeah, Jebediah is most experienced. I'll send him for now. Okay, so staging's correct, everything's fine. I'm going to save this as it is and launch. Hey guys, this is a future version of me. I tried to make this video plus the moon video in the same one, but it ended up being too long, so I was trying to see how I could split it. It didn't make sense to split the traveling to the moon into 2 videos, so I decided I would cut the launch until, well, wherever the mission takes us. So in this one I'm just going to show you another few things before we do get to the launch that I haven't explained before. Probably not that exciting, but just so you just so we can go through it. Some of the parts of there that we haven't seen yet, just so we can look at that. So the areas that we have looked at so far are, well, of course the VAB, we know the launch pads, we know the runway when it comes to like the mission we did to get extra science, spaceplane hangar to build your ships, we know the mission control. We've seen some of the R&D, but I want to show you something here that's interesting as well. So when you're in your R&D, you see all your different your science tree, but if you go to your archives up here, archives shows you what you've already collected, what information you've collected, and it gives you an idea of what you can still collect. So in the case of like, so what this shows you all the missions, all the science we've collected so far, and so in the case like atmospheric pressure scan from administration, so that was from the administration building. We did that within the vehicle that we built, and it shows, yeah, we got 3.6 science out of it. And what this is showing you, the value is showing you the quality of the science that we brought back. So in this case it was 100%, so we got everything we can get out of that, so there's no point in ever doing an atmosphere pressure test again from the administration building. Same as astronaut complex, all these ones, no point in doing them again because you'll get no more value out of it. Now if we scroll down a bit though, you'll see here, for example, apparently Well, okay, so if I look at these, some of the ones that we've done. So Mystery Goo observation from the astronaut complex, it only received, what's that, maybe 80%. So there's a gap, or 75%, whatever it is. So I could go back there again and collect that extra bit of science. That might have something to do with the case that the data wasn't sent correctly, or it was an astronaut rather than a scientist, or the scientist just doesn't have enough experience. It can have different reasons, but it just lets you see, okay, in these areas I could gather that little bit more of science. So like from Mystery Goo observation from R&D, I can see there it wasn't as good as it could have been. So instead of 3.0, I could probably get another 0.5 out of it, for example, which isn't really worth it. Well, I can actually click on it, so view science report. No, I can't actually see anything from it. But yeah, so I can get a little bit more out of it. Again, in this case, it's only going to be about 0.5, so it's not really worth it. Or maybe full science, whatever it's going to be. With other places, like if you go to different areas, so the further you get out from Kerbal, you're going to end up with way more science. Like you'll find when you land on the moon or something like that, this same science experiment, instead of getting 3 from R&D, you will end up with getting 30, 40, or whatever the number is. So on the moon, for example, it can make sense if you're missing 75% or whatever it is with each science experiment and going up there again. You're looking, rather than just gaining 1, 2, or 3 science, you might end up gaining 20 or 30. Can make it worth it. Just so you know that. And you'll also see, so you see here the different experiments that we've done, if you wanted to filter through them, and on which surfaces we've done it. The one that I've been struggling with is surface splash, because I had the splashdown mission. Still haven't completed it because it's just not finishing it for me for some reason. But I'm not too worried about that for now. But yeah, it shows that I did complete the missions, but for some reason it didn't work. You can then also click on the different planets to see if you've done any missions there, which in this case we haven't so far, but just so you know that exists. Then we have our astronaut complex. I don't think I've showed you guys that one yet. So in the astronaut complex, this is where you can hire Kerbals. In this case, at the moment, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 Kerbals. Ignore the 2 at the bottom because that's a mission. I'll show you that mission at some point. But at the moment, we have 4 Kerbals that are available as astronauts. So you've got your pilot, an engineer, a scientist, and another pilot. Okay, well, I'll quickly explain. These are 2 tourists. What that means is, so I picked a mission from the missions bay, or whatever, or from the missions center, and that was to ferry tourists into space. That's why they're showing here as available. I can't use them as pilots, of course. It's just showing that they're available for sightseeing, so I could put them on the ship, and I get extra money from doing that. So I can buy extra pilots here. It shows you here how much it costs to hire a new pilot. So if I was to hire one of these guys, it will end up, so it'll cost 62. The next one will cost more. I don't know how much exactly, but it will cost more. So every time you hire a new pilot, it's going to cost you more and more each time. I wouldn't, in the beginning, wouldn't recommend you to buy pilots, because there is missions in the mission control where you can so there'll be missions for you to rescue a pilot in space. So like it'll be someone that's stranded in orbit or something like that, stuck in a ship, stuck in this tin can floating around Earth, like Major Tom. And yeah, so what you can do is you go up and collect them, and they will then become a part of your space force. So that'll save you this hiring someone. Of course, if you need it and you have the money, then hire someone. But I would recommend you try and do the missions where you do the rescue missions instead, because you'll end up with pilots for free that way. And sometimes they come with experience. The only thing you don't know in advance if it's a scientist, engineer, or pilot, but it doesn't matter. Anyone you can get for free is very helpful, especially in the beginning, because 62 is not that bad, but I think if you hire a few people, eventually it's just gonna this number will go up significantly. Like you'll end up paying 200, 300, 400,000 for a pilot, or for for whatever engineer or scientist, which you don't want. One thing, yeah, I think I've showed you this already, but you've got your flagpole. If you wanted to, you could change your flag you want to use in your ship. That makes no difference, it's just purely visual. You also have the administration building. Now this is something I don't use myself really, because I've never felt the need, but if you're, let's say for example, you're playing a lot of missions where you know you're earning a lot of money but you're not getting much science out of it, you can create a campaign, let's say for science, and you've got all these different what do you want to call it, systems that you can set up, or sorry, strategies as it's called. If you click on the strategy, in this case, unpaid research program, so what that would do is, so it would take 5% of the reputation that you gain, and for each one of that you would end, or yeah, so you'd end up with science for that instead. Okay, and then you can kind of choose what you want to gain. Again, something I don't really use, but it is there if you wanted it. Like if you feel, okay, I'm earning way too much money, not getting enough science, you would you would turn your money into science as such. You've got all these different programs you can play around with. Up to your own discretion as how you want to use them. You'd have to look through them yourself, because I can't really, I don't use them myself at all, so you'd have to look at what the different things do. What I do know though, like if you were to right click on it, you can upgrade the building as well. So when you start off, you can only have one strategy, and the max commitment you can do is 25%. If you want to upgrade it, you can upgrade it, it'll give you more. So yeah, that's it. That's all of that on buildings for now. So I'll let you go back to the main part of the campaign again. So I'm going to end this video here, and the next video will start off from the last video you've seen, but starting from the launch pad.